Welcome to our deep dive into the minds of history's most notorious rulers. These were leaders who wielded immense power, but whose bizarre and often terrifying behavior led to chaos and destruction. Today, we'll explore the lives and legacies of these mad rulers and try to answer one burning question. Who was the craziest of them all? Emperor Nero, one of the most infamous figures in Roman history, evokes images of madness and excess. His reign, colored by extreme cruelty and opulence, has been a subject of fascination for centuries. Here was a man who, according to popular legend, fiddled while Rome burned. But is this portrayal fair or accurate? Born Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus, Nero ascended to the throne at the tender age of 17, following the death of his predecessor and adopted father, Claudius. His early reign was promising, marked by wise counsel from his advisors and early positive reforms. However, Nero soon embarked on a path of self-indulgence and tyranny. The Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD is perhaps the most enduring symbol of his rule. The fire raged for 6 days, consuming much of the city. Rumors spread that Nero himself had started the blaze to clear land for his Golden House, or Domus Aurea, a grandiose palace complex. Historical accounts vary widely, and while some suggest a more nuanced perspective, the popular narrative stuck. In the years that followed, Nero's actions only fueled his notoriety. He executed his own mother, Agrippina, allegedly to consolidate his power. His extravagance knew no bounds. From lavish parties to exorbitant construction projects, he bled the Roman treasury dry. Yet, it is argued by some historians that Nero was not entirely the monster he is often portrayed as. Nero's complex legacy leaves us pondering whether he was a mad tyrant or simply a misunderstood ruler burdened by immense power. Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, better known as Caligula, reigned as the third emperor of Rome from AD 37 to 41. His early rule began promisingly, marked by public popularity and the implementation of several reforms. But soon, Caligula's behavior took a sharp and horrifying turn that has echoed through history, painting him as one of the most tyrannical rulers Rome ever knew. Born into a prominent family, Caligula was exposed to political intrigues and power struggles from a young age. He witnessed the poisoning of his father, Germanicus, and the calculated manipulations within the Roman elite. This tumultuous upbringing may have sown the seeds for his later erratic actions. When Caligula ascended to the throne, Rome initially rejoiced. He cut taxes, released prisoners, and hosted magnificent games. However, following a severe illness, his demeanor changed drastically. The man who had been seen as a beacon of hope turned into a figure of terror. The madness began subtly, with smaller eccentricities. Caligula insisted on being treated as a living god, ordering temples and statues to be erected in his honor. He mandated that he be referred to as Jupiter and even donned the god's attire. His delusions of grandeur knew no bounds. One of his most notorious acts was appointing his horse, Incitatus, as a priest. Clad in a purple robe and adorned with jewels, Incitatus attended lavish banquets and ceremonies. Scholars debate whether this act was a genuine display of madness or an elaborate jest to mock the Senate's impotence. Caligula's cruelty soon became evident. He exiled or executed those he perceived as threats, often on the flimsiest pretexts. Reports of his sadistic pleasures, such as forcing parents to witness their children's executions, cemented his image as a madman unchecked by moral or ethical boundaries. The emperor's reign of terror was mercifully brief. In AD 41, following a particularly harsh bout of paranoia, Caligula was assassinated by members of his own Praetorian Guard. His death marked the end of a regime characterized by chaos, fear, and unchecked despotism. Though his reign lasted only 4 years, The nightmare that was Caligula left an indelible mark on Roman history and continues to fascinate scholars and enthusiasts alike. Ivan IV of Russia, more notoriously known as Ivan the Terrible, was a ruler who more than lived up to his menacing moniker. Rising to power in 1547, Ivan's rule was marked by extreme paranoia, cruelty, and a relentless pursuit of absolute authority. His reign saw the torture and execution of thousands, a bloody spree that even claimed his beloved son, Ivan Ivanovich. Ivan's tyrannical rule created a legacy of fear that would haunt Russia for generations to come. Ivan's life was marred by personal tragedies and political chaos. Orphaned at a young age, he witnessed the murder of his mother and the betrayal of close advisors. These events fed his deep-seated mistrust and paranoia, shaping him into the reclusive and volatile ruler that history remembers. His Oprichnina, a state policy meant to consolidate power, turned into a campaign of terror against the nobility and anyone deemed a threat. Under his command, the Oprichniki, a feared secret police force, ruthlessly executed and tortured countless individuals, spreading an atmosphere of dread across the land. But was Ivan truly mad, or merely a product of his harrowing times? The line between madness and the weight of the world he governed is blurred. Ivan lived in an era when rulers faced constant threats and rebellions. His excessive methods of control could be seen as a desperate measure to maintain stability in a fracturing kingdom. Despite his terrorizing reign, Ivan did achieve some significant accomplishments. He established the Moscow print yard, introduced a legal code, and expanded Russian territory, laying groundwork for future generations. Mad tyrant or a ruler shaped by his tumultuous times, Ivan's legacy continues to be a subject of debate amongst historians. Across the Channel in England, we encounter Henry VIII, a king whose obsession with securing a male heir led him to marry 6 times and execute 2 of his wives. Henry's unpredictable nature and ruthless actions left a mark on England's history that is still felt today. But was he driven by madness or something else? Born on June 28, 1491, Henry ascended to the throne in 1509 after the death of his father, Henry VII. Initially, Henry VIII was a charismatic and athletic young king, a stark contrast to the tyrant he would later become. His early reign was marked by numerous achievements, including the expansion of the Royal Navy and various cultural advancements. However, one issue overshadowed all his successes: his desperate need for a male heir. His first wife, Catherine of Aragon, bore him a single surviving daughter, Mary. Frustrated and increasingly desperate, Henry sought an annulment from Catherine, which was denied by Pope Clement VII. This denial set off a significant chain of events, leading Henry to break away from the Roman Catholic Church and establish the Church of England, appointing himself as its supreme head. His marriage to Anne Boleyn bore him another daughter, Elizabeth, but no sons. By now, Henry's paranoia and temperament were worsening. Convinced that Anne was unfaithful and a threat to his rule, he had her executed on charges of adultery and treason. His subsequent marriages to Jane Seymour, Anne of Cleves, Catherine Howard, and Catherine Parr were driven by similar motives, either the quest for a male heir or political alliance. Only Jane Seymour gave him the son he so desperately wanted, Edward, but she died shortly after childbirth. Despite obtaining a male heir, Henry's cruelty and erratic behavior continued to escalate. His relationship with Catherine Howard ended in her execution, while Catherine Parr narrowly escaped a similar fate. Henry's health deteriorated in his later years, and he became increasingly tyrannical. By the time of his death in 1547, Henry VIII had transformed from England's promising young monarch to a notorious despot. Vlad the Impaler, often cited as the real-life inspiration for the legendary vampire Dracula, stands as one of history's most infamous rulers. Born in 1431 in what is now Romania, Vlad III, Prince of Wallachia, was known for his brutal methods of defending his kingdom against Ottoman invasion. His tactic of impaling enemies on stakes earned him the moniker Vlad the Impaler. The sight alone of thousands of impaled bodies served as a grim deterrent to potential invaders. Vlad's reign was marked by a series of calculated acts of cruelty that left a lasting impression on both his contemporaries and later generations. He was a complex figure. Some viewed him as a hero who defended Europe from Ottoman expansion, while others saw him as a bloodthirsty tyrant. The psychological profile of Vlad remains a point of debate among historians. Was his cruelty merely a sign of unhinged madness or, rather, a cold, calculated strategy for maintaining power and instilling fear? Vlad's upbringing was filled with political intrigue and betrayal. He was held hostage by the Ottomans in his youth, alongside his brother. These experiences undoubtedly shaped his worldview, perhaps fueling a deep-seated desire for vengeance and control. His reign included not only acts of unspeakable violence but also efforts to centralize authority, reduce the influence of the nobility, and bolster the military defenses of Wallachia. The legacy of Vlad the Impaler continues to be a subject of fascination. His life has inspired countless works of fiction and historical analysis, often blurring the lines between fact and legend. Vlad's story forces us to confront the disturbing intersections of power, violence, and psychology. Was he a madman reveling in bloodlust, or a ruler employing terror as a tool of governance? Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between, a reflection of the brutal realities of his time. Our journey takes us to Madagascar, where Queen Ranavalona I ruled with an iron fist. Her reign, marked by extreme isolationism and the brutal suppression of dissent, has painted her as one of the most tyrannical rulers in history. But was she truly mad, or fiercely protective of her kingdom? Ranavalona's ascent to power was mired in intrigue. Born into a noble family, she was married to King Radama I, a union that would change her fate. Upon Radama's death, Ranavalona seized power, quelling rival factions with ruthless efficiency. Her iron-fisted rule was characterized by an unwavering determination to preserve Madagascar's sovereignty. She expelled Christian missionaries, fearing they were agents of colonial influence, and dismantled trade agreements that she believed tipped the scales against her people. Her methods were severe. The Tangina ordeal, a traditional trial by poison, became a common tool to root out enemies and dissenters. Thousands perished under her rule, leading to her notorious reputation. However, her relentless defense kept foreign powers at bay during a time of rampant colonization in Africa. Ranavalona's reign brought a stark dichotomy. On one hand, her brutality ensured that Madagascar remained free from colonial rule. On the other, her isolationism stunted economic progress and cost countless lives. After 33 years, Ranavalona's reign ended with her death in 1861. Jean Bedel Bokassa's journey from a colonel to the self-proclaimed emperor of Central Africa was marked by a blend of ambition, paranoia, and a thirst for power that bordered on the delusional. Emerging from a background harshened by colonial influences and military discipline, Bokassa seized power through a coup in 1965, overthrowing the democratically elected government. Once in power, he declared himself president for life and later, in a grandiose ceremony reminiscent of Napoleon, crowned himself emperor in 1977. His rule was undeniably bizarre and brutal, filled with extravagant fits of madness. Bokassa was accused of extravagant spending and draining the nation's coffers to fund his lavish lifestyle, which included golden thrones, designer clothes, and a coronation that cost a third of the national budget. Amid this opulence, he grew increasingly paranoid and ruthless. Bokassa's regime was notorious for its horrific human rights abuses. He was implicated in numerous acts of torture and executions of those he perceived as threats or dissenters. One of the darkest aspects of his rule was the chilling accusation of cannibalism. Reports emerged that Bokassa partook in the ritualistic eating of his enemies, an act that cemented his reputation as a tyrant. Internationally condemned, Bokassa's reign was often compared to the likes of Caligula and Nero, other leaders known for their extreme cruelty and erratic behavior. Despite the horrors of his rule, what drove Bokassa to such extremes remains complex. Some argue it was a manifestation of a deeply troubled psyche, exacerbated by unlimited power and wealth, while others suggest a desperate need to command fear and loyalty to maintain his precarious hold on power. Ultimately, Bokassa's reign came to an abrupt end in 1979, when he was overthrown in a coup supported by French forces. He spent years in exile before returning to the Central African Republic, where he faced trial and was convicted of murder, though the cannibalism charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. Nonetheless, the legacy of his brutal regime remains a chilling reminder of the depths of human cruelty. Delving into the lives of history's most notorious rulers, we find a collection of personalities each marked by their own brand of madness. Nero's cruelty was legendary, as he set Rome ablaze and fiddled while the city burned, allegedly executing countless citizens and even his own mother. Caligula's excesses were infamous, with tales of extravagant feasts, human sacrifices, and utterly bizarre behavior such as appointing his horse as a priest. Ivan the Terrible's paranoia was profound, with his Oprichniki terrorizing the populace, and his own hand claiming the life of his son in a fit of rage. Henry VIII's tyranny, marked by his ruthless eradication of perceived enemies and his relentless marital churn, left a trail of blood and broken alliances. Vlad the Impaler's brutality, cultivating his fearsome reputation by impaling thousands and dining among the grisly forest he created, was unparalleled in its sheer savagery. Ranavalona I of Madagascar, remembered for her ruthless suppression of Christianity and widespread executions, solidified her legacy as a heartless despot. Comparing these rulers, the measure of their madness lies not only in their actions, but in the ripples those actions sent through history. Nero's cruelty, Caligula's lavish mania, Ivan's ingrained paranoia, Henry's capricious tyranny, Vlad's horrifying methods, and Ranavalona's merciless reign all reveal different facets of tyranny and insanity. Evaluating who among them was the most insane requires weighing not only the scale and scope of their misdeeds, but also the impact their reigns had on their subjects and the world at large. Their madness was manifested in ways that were reflections of their unique personalities and the times they lived in. Each ruler, in their darkest deeds, showcased elements of insanity that seemed boundless and descriptive of their very essence as leaders consumed by power, fear, and often a profound disconnect from humanity. Madness and power often go hand in hand, and history is full of rulers whose actions have shocked the world. But what can we learn from their stories? Are these tales of madness a warning of the dangers of unchecked power, or a reminder of the human capacity for cruelty? Let us know in the comments who you think was the craziest ruler of them all. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating insights into history's most notorious figures.